Hi, everybody. I hope you can hear me and thank you for joining in. My name is Rohit. I am your host today and also an account executive with Time Doctor. We are all about helping you and your teams master the art of productivity. We are a time tracking productivity analytics and work insights software. Think of us as Fitbit for remote teams. And we are here today for a topic that couldn't be more relevant or timely: finding focus and how to empower your teams to get things done anywhere. This is certainly a challenge that we are all navigating through and for, especially now that remote work has become an essential part of how we do business, and it is just going to grow that way. So let's keep it real. When we work remotely, there are going to be distractions, and they're everywhere. But we've got the tools and insights to help you tackle them head on. Who better to guide us than the incredible Valentina Thörner? She is a true superstar in remote leadership, and she has been paving the way for over a decade now in product leadership and customer experience. While she's been doing this, and she's doing this remotely. She's also a single mom. She's mastered the art of handling real life scenarios outside of the office. So if anyone knows how to roll with the punches, it's her. So, what the things that we're going to look at today and what we've got in store for you is we'll journey through identifying remote work distractions, understanding the impact of these distractions on productivity, learning strategies to minimize distractions, recognizing the pivotal role of leadership in managing these disruptions, and finally, getting inspired by real world success stories of remote work excellence. So I welcome you all aboard, and if you could put in chat, where are you joining from? That would be awesome. In the end, of course, we are having a Q&A session where we will be answering all your burning questions on managing remote team distractions. So let's buckle up and dive in. Over to you, Valentina.
You're on mute. This would not be a webinar if something like this didn't happen. I hope this was the only glitch for today. So I'm Valentina Thörner. I'm based in Spain. Originally from Germany, hence my lovely German accent and not my Spanish accent. And I'm tuning in from very close to Barcelona. We are going to talk about distractions today and how to find focus. And I find it very interesting how distractions as a word is actually quite close to destruction. And this is actually a point. Distraction destructs your focus. So what we're going to do, because I'm going to share my screen in a second, and that means I won't necessarily be seeing the chat. So put your questions in chat, any question that you have. Rohit is going to keep an eye on it and we'll collate it all so that we can talk about it at the very end. And then I'm going to make this shortish. I'm aiming for 25 to 30 minutes because that way we have some time at the end to go into maybe even your real life scenarios. So let's see how, if we can make the screen share work this time. Allow and go into full screen mode. And now I'm going to check if we actually, can you all see my screen? Audience? Just somebody screaming of writing, whether you can actually see what you should be seeing. I think you do. Okay, perfect. So finding focus, how to empower your team to get things done, because that's the other part. We are going to talk about what you can do as a team lead, as a company founder, as somebody who is managing people in your company. So usually I start off with this, but this only really works if we're a lot of people. And since I think this is a smaller audience today, I have brought in the answers that I got on the last time that I did this workshop, which is all the things, all the type of distractions people are familiar with. And there's quite a lot. As you can see, kids and dogs, who are the biggest one. Slack would probably also be just as big as dogs if somebody didn't mistake his writing up here. So it's things that come from the outside, things that disrupt what you're focusing at the moment. Now, if we look at this list, and this is from a very mixed audience, like some of these people work in an office, and some of these people actually work from home or from co-working spaces. And yet, most of us can probably relate to all of these distractions. And that's because distractions can be influenced by your surrounding, but they don't necessarily depend whether you are at home or in an office. For example, kids. That's definitely a distraction that won't happen in the office. Dogs is something that could happen in the office, and Slack is going to happen as soon as you open up your computer. So don't think that distraction is only something that happens for people who work outside the office. It's actually something that happens for anyone who works. Distractions are just a matter of life, a matter of reality. With maybe if you build a bunker with the soundproof and nobody can go in, maybe then you could be kind of distraction free. But even then, knowing that you forgot to put on the laundry at home might still be a distraction. So you can't really run away from it. And that brings us to one important distinction. Wait, what has, you can't see the list. I'm getting an answer here. This is really, oh, you got stuck on the, let's try this again. Good thing that I only went into one screen. One. Now you do. Now you do, right? Haha. This is the list. So here we have kids and dogs and Slack and all the different things that can interrupt you. If we, some of these here, partner working at home, that only happens at home. TV in the other room only happens at home. Unsolicited calls, though, can happen in the office. Phone notification, definitely in the office. And I know that WhatsApp messages is a huge problem for a lot of people. So if we look at these and categorize them, we have external distractions and we have internal distractions. So one is the things that you can kind of not control that much because they are set on you based on your environment, and the other parts happen in your brain. So here as an example, internal, it's all the things that you want to keep in mind, and external, it's what happens around you. Here you can see me working at a standing desk while my son, who was sick home at that day, is doing a puzzle on the floor. I have a standing desk, which means that at this age, he was 4 at the time, he wasn't able to actually reach the keyboard, God sent, but still, like half of my brain was kind of looking to what he was doing behind me. So a clear external distraction that probably would not happen in the office. On the other side, I couldn't probably work at all on a day if I couldn't do it from home while the child is at least halfway organized. So if we step back, if we take a step back, why, why does it matter? Why does it matter, especially for you as a people leader? Why should you invest in helping your team to kind of get rid of distractions to be able to find more focus? Like, is that so difficult? After all, you are kind of managing it. Can they not just kind of manage it as well? Why does it matter? So I'm going to share one of my favorite graphs with you. This is a study from 2018. So you cannot tell me that this is a remote work problem. This is just a work problem. 2018, an HR study, average time between checking in on emails or instant messaging, which nowadays would be Slack. And in 2018, and that was before all of you had Slack on their phones, the median was 6 minutes. People wouldn't be able to go without checking their emails for more than 6 minutes. Now, this is the medium, of course, for every person that is really dedicated to deep work for an hour. You have a person who is constantly in email and doesn't get anything done other than email. And emails, I mean, they never end. You can really spend your day in there. So if we look at this, it's like every 6 minutes we interrupt ourselves in whatever we are doing. And I assume that if you have Slack active on your computer, and if you have Slack active on your computer with notifications on, I assume it's a lot more than 6 minutes, probably more something like 1 minute, because the amount of people who cannot live with the red bubble or the jumping Slack emoji, no, Slack logo in their sidebar, I think it's more that can't live with this than people who can just ignore it. So if we combine this with the fact that it takes you 23 minutes to regain focus after being interrupted, 23 minutes. If you look at your phone or at your email again after 6 minutes, you're never going to get back to focus. So we need to find a way how we can reduce the distractions so that if you really want to get things done, if you really want to create this report, if you really want to work on that strategy, you actually get the time that you need. And the same is for your team. You don't want to be the one interrupting your team all the time with ad hoc meetings or quick questions and interrupt while they're trying to create that strategy document that you are going to present to the leadership team later. So make sure that you really understand what it takes, these constant interruptions, these constant distractions for the people on your team. This is not just about you, it's about the entire company, your entire team, and everybody who's trying to add value. Can they not just look at the at Slack while they're doing their other tasks? I've been asked that, like, for real in the past. And the thing is, multitasking is not a thing. Our brains can only multitask on things that are happening in completely different parts on the brain. Let's say you can vacuum your floor while you're listening to a podcast, because operating the vacuum machine doesn't really interfere with listening to something. If you then on top of that listen to something else, like the TV, for example, it already gets a little bit more complicated, and it's very, very likely that you're not going to listen to either the podcast or the Netflix show, because it's kind of the same stream of input that's coming to you. So if multitasking doesn't work and you need 23 minutes to get back into anything that you were concentrated on, that means we really need a strategy in order to make sure we get those solid blocks of time that we can work. And one final thing that happens with a lot of distractions, if we hop between tasks a lot, every time we change a task, remember another task, get back to this initial task, and then go back again, we end up with a little bit of attention residue that kind of accumulates in your working memory. And your brain, the longer the days go on, goes slower and slower and slower, and you feel more and more tired because from all the things that you've been hopping back and forth from, and where you have been trying to keep tabs on, is going to kind of lower your energy level that you now have left to work on the things that you want to work on. So all of this together means, like, what do we do with all of these distractions? How do we find the focus to get the things done that we want? Try harder doesn't work. I'm really sorry, but just trying harder doesn't work. Willpower, trying to do things, is a little bit like a muscle. You can strengthen it, and you should strengthen it. But even the strongest muscle in the world at some point will give out on you. So whether you do, like, maybe you could do 3,000 reps or 300 reps, or you can do 3 reps, at some point your muscle is just going to say, I'm done, I need a rest. And the same happens with the willpower muscle. If you say, today I'm going to only focus, that will work for you until probably 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. or something. And then your brain is just going to say, yeah, whatever, we need a break. Let's just zone out. And why is this? What can we do instead? So we can do, I call it cookies, as a shortcut for this study that they did in, if I remember correctly, 2006 or 2007. The title of this study is The Secretary Study, Environment Matters. And this is one of the seminal studies that shares that environmental cues can heavily influence the way people act, in this case, regarding food choices. So the study setup was this. They took 40 companies and their secretaries, all women at the time, 2006, 2007, probably all women on a diet, and put cookies on their Hershey Kisses, because it's a US American study, onto the desk, the reception desk where, like, the lady sits behind, usually it's a lady, and then you have, like, the upper part, and there they put the Hershey Kisses. And they didn't tell the secretaries, like, they couldn't eat them, or they couldn't. They just put them there, and then they counted how many of these Hershey Kisses the secretaries ate during the day. And then after a time, they swapped it out and they put the platter with the Hershey Kisses into a cupboard that was about 3 steps, 5 steps away from this person, which means that she actually had to physically get up, walk over, get one of those sweets, walk back to her desk and sit down. This means that instead of just mindlessly grabbing one of those sweets, there was an intermediate step because the person had to think about, do I really want this? Like, am I interested enough in this Hershey Kiss to actually get up, walk over, come back here and sit down again? Or do I wait for a little bit longer? And the assumption was that it wouldn't matter if you want a Hershey Kiss, you're going to take a Hershey Kiss. Like, who cares if you have to actually get up? But it turns out that in the experiment part where the sweets were far away, like 3 steps, the secretaries actually ate 2.5 times less. So if they ate 5 cookies or Hershey Kisses while they were at an arm's length, they would only eat 2 when they were far away. Not because they made any conscious decision that they wanted to eat less, but simply because it was more of a hassle. And what does this mean for distractions? Like, if we look at these cookies or these sweets as the distraction, we understand that we can actually make our environment set up, we can tweak it in a way so that distractions don't get to us as easily, or so that it's easier to manage or even to manage them away. And that's what I want to go with you now, because the thing is, you have more control than you think over the things that happen. So the goal for the remainder of this little talk is, how can you help your team to eliminate or manage your distractions? Because your goal is actually that everybody on your team has exactly what they need in terms of setup to do their best work and to do it without being distracted all the time. So to do this, you have 2 levers. As we focus on distraction, you will need to talk to your people about this, definitely. So, like, don't just assume that you know what's distracting then, but send out a questionnaire and ask people what makes work easy for you and what makes work hard. What makes it hard at the moment to focus, and see what comes up. Let's look at the very beginning. We said there were external and internal distractions. We're going to start with the external distractions first, because as a team leader, as a team manager, as a people manager, you have a more immediate influence on the external distractions. And I very much recommend to solve for these on a company level and not on an individual level, so that you give everybody kind of a framework for how you expect them to work, how you expect distractions to be managed. We have 2 types on how we can 2 types of solution for these external distractions. One is operational. Operational means that you help people to set an environment that is conducive to productive work. So it's kind of the framework. And then the people-based solutions is of solutions that individual people can use and that are a little bit more tailored maybe to their specific situation at a point in time. So let's look at some examples. Now I'm going to give you 4 examples for each. Remember, this is not everything that you can do. There are just some examples that you can do. When we're looking at operational, think about, how can we structure the work environment in a way that it's easy to work there? And for example, in an office, that would mean that you would step away from the open office and actually create an environment where people can find a room where they can just work away undisturbed and very quiet. That is an operational option, like looking at how the office is actually distributed. If you're working remote or in a distributed team, that's actually a little bit easier. That's why my first recommendation is a co-working allowance. Think about this, like, you on a certain level, if you're in people management, if you're in leadership, you probably have enough disposable income to have a flat where you can have your little working area. You maybe even have your own office at home. Or your living room is big enough that you have a space where you can put up your work environment and make it feel like work. Not everybody has this privilege. So depending on where your people live, depending on whether they live in a really, really expensive area or in a country where maybe flats by default have like very small rooms. Their home might not be the best space to work. So by giving a co-working allowance, you help people to find a space that is different, where they can really focus on work. Now, the interesting part here is not whether everybody's going to take that co-working allowance. Just having a co-working allowance in your policies tells a story. It tells people, we acknowledge that your home may not be the best place to work. That is totally fine. We will help you to find a place where you can work in peace. That may be a co-working, that may be the public library, that may be a cafe that has a specific area that's great for co-working. But like, make it very clear that you don't expect, just because you offer remote work, that you don't expect people necessarily to work from home. Of course, this also goes with certain security guidelines. So, for example, if somebody's taking clients' calls, please do this in an environment where no one can overhear you. If you're working in an open space like a cafe or a library, make sure that you have one of those privacy screens on your computer so that people from the side can't see what you're working on. So there are some additional things that you might want to think about, but the big narrative here is we want you to find a place where you can work in peace. And if knowing that there is a dishwasher to be unloaded completely derails your focus, well, go to that co-working. Another option is to actually use meeting-free days and make it a company policy. Tell people, look, on Mondays and Fridays, there are no meetings. We want you to focus on whatever you want to focus on. Which also means that on these days, you may want to suggest people not to use Slack that much. You can also do, instead of meeting 3 days, you can kind of push meetings together and say, okay, in this company, we only have internal meetings from, let's say, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. or something, because that's when our time zones specifically overlap. And that way, it's not that you still have those extra hours that people then can optimize for their focus work. Very important communication rules. How do we communicate at work? Because the internal communication is actually one of the biggest distraction creators or distraction sources. If you have Slack open, you're going to get distracted every couple of seconds, unless you mute the channels where you don't need to be all the time, unless you mute Slack entirely, or actually close it off. And that is something that you need to make clear within your communication policies. Is it okay for somebody to switch off Slack? Like, can people just leave Slack for the day, like close down the entire application to not be reached? If that is fine, and I would recommend that this should be fine for people to just put in "I'm in deep work" and then close the application. The same goes for email. Close the email, close everything that you don't need while you're working on something specific, and communicate to everybody that this is not a company where we expect immediate responses. We expect a response in 6 hours, 12 hours. If you're very asynchronous, 24 hours, maybe even 48 hours. Make sure that it's very clear. If I have a question, I can ask a question, and it may take 6 hours to get an answer. This also means that people are going to start looking for the answers before actually asking you. Because if I have a quick question, and I know the quick question will take 6 hours, I'll just look in the knowledge base first and make sure that I have covered all bases there before I interrupt somebody else. And finally, have work visibility standards. That means that once a day or once a week, people actually publish somewhere what they have been working on. And this has basically two effects. One is, of course, that work is more visible and other people can see what you are working on. But it also means that people are more motivated to actually make sure that they have something to report at the end of the week. And this can already add some motivation in order to get rid of all those distractions. Because if you know that you're working for a goal, it's a lot easier to actually get there. So now let's look at people-based. In this case, actually benefits. For example, if you know, not if you know, actually just across the board. You can offer mental health benefits like a couple of sessions per year with a psychologist or with specific coaches, etc., so that people can navigate complicated current situations in their life. Maybe, for example, if they're going through a grieving process, if they just became new parents, if somebody close to them is in a complicated health situation, etc. So if you feel like individuals could, and everybody could actually benefit from going to therapy, you can kickstart this by having this kind of benefits within your company. Offer regular career plannings. Now, remember the individual setting here to get rid of those distractions. This people don't have to use this, but they can use it. So, career planning is something for those people in your company who are like very career focused and who really want to see that they are growing. By offering them the option to make a career plan, which also means that they need to do A, B, C within this amount of time. This ups the motivation to get things done, and very often that is the reason why people proactively go out of their way to get rid of distractions. Of course, productivity training. Sorry, there is a very good test by Doist, which can help you to find out what is the best productivity setup for yourself. And with this, if you combine this with distraction management, you can really accelerate the road towards more productivity. And then finally, employee coaching, which what a lot of companies actually offer for their people managers, because who are then going to kind of pass this, what they have learned, on to their own reports. Because at the end of the day, in a distributed environment, you as the team leader are the person who's most in charge of the productivity and the distraction of the people on your team, which brings us to the internal distractions. The one person who has the biggest impact on helping people to manage their internal distractions is you. You, as the team manager, you, as the people manager, you are the person who can create the safe space where people can actually figure out why they have these internal distractions, where they can talk through the things that distract them, and where they can find solutions together with you. That means you need to honor your one-on-ones under like almost all circumstances. And one-on-ones, they are not just a place for people to share what they worked on. That's where you have your weekly stand-up, like the work visibility program for. But they are there for you to connect as human beings. One-on-ones should happen once a week or every second week, and don't just talk about work, because what happens at work, you can just check that on whatever Asana, Trello, Notion board, or whatever you use to actually keep track of things. But talk about the things that happen in that person's lives. Like, how are they going on? What is currently very, very hard for them in their job? What's going really, really well? What are they proud of? What are they struggling with? Where could you help them? And one of my favorite questions is, how can I make your life at work easier, which is kind of the broken down on the tiniest level question that you should ask yourself as an organization. How can we make work easier for the people that work here instead of adding friction? Where can we remove friction to be productive? This one-on-ones also include things like being aware of what's happening in the personal life of the people on your team. Like, you don't need to be noisy and understand every little details, but you should probably know whether they have kids and a dog, and in general, how is their life set up? Because in distributed work, these things, they cannot just leave them at home if they work at home. It's like everything influences. Then distractions sometimes are actually a warning sign that you're doing too much. So as a lead, you have the for better or for worse, you are the example. People are going to emulate you. They're going to try to do what you are doing. So one of the biggest recommendations is to take time off. If you have unlimited vacation, especially, which usually in practice means no one takes any time off ever, like, make sure that you go on vacation. Make sure that you take a mental health day and tell people that you're taking a mental health day. Or if you have options to go on parental leave, go on parental leave. Like, do these things uh, and show that this is okay, because otherwise people are not going to do it. And then finally, model the behavior that you want to see. When it comes to family, to friends, to hobbies, I'm leaving today at 5 because I want to pick up my kids and take them to soccer practice. And because I know that I have no buffer whatsoever, I'm going to get this, this, and this, and this done. And because I want to get these things done, I'm now going to get off Slack for an hour to really focus on these things. That's how you explain why distraction management is so important. So you're not just leaving Slack because everybody is bugging you all the time and you're a hell of annoyed. No, you're leaving Slack for an hour because you're focusing on these things because you want to take off your kids. And that's something that most people then actually understand why this is important. So focus on actually what is the important part, and this is something that can feed back into the one-on-ones, because if you understand what motivates your people to actually focus on things, then it's easier to help them get rid of those distractions. So what to remember: first, distractions are part of work life. There will always be distractions. There's no way that you're going to get rid of all of the distractions in your life. I mean, I wish. Or maybe I don't, because sometimes distractions also give you very good ideas. But the fact is, they are there. You can analyze, categorize, and manage distractions. So even if you can't really get rid of them all the time, you definitely can manage them. And sometimes you can even push them together. For example, if you leave Slack and then come back after an hour and read all the messages that came, you have basically not reduced the distraction, but you have managed it and put it into one time slot. And you can design environments for less distractions. A very, very simple example: if I'm doing this webinar and my kids are at school, the fact that I have organized this to be when the kids are not here, it already means that I have optimized to not be distracted by them. So think about, when are you working, where and on what could distract you, and how you are going to work to make this more survivable, because you are the one in charge. You are the one who can design your environment, and you are the one who can help your team members set up an environment that works for them. So go forth and be undistracted. If you want to get in touch, easiest is to get in touch with me on LinkedIn. I read all DMs, more than I read my emails, to be honest. And if you have any specific questions, you can share them now in chat, and we're going to look at those. So let's have a look. Can flexible schedules help manage distractions? Yes, absolutely. Actually, flexible schedules are one of the best solutions for distractions. Because if I know I'm going to be distracted during whatever lunch break, and I can take that hour off and like do it at another time of the day, we've already solved for those distractions that I know are coming anyway. You
I
look like you
agree.
wanted to say something, Rohit.
Yeah, I was about to say that I agree. Uh, we at Time Doctor do have flexible schedules, and we kind of use it in our own way. For example, in the evening, I just don't want to work. I want to be outside, running around or playing something. So I keep a store of that. Maybe I want to pick that up later in the night. I have a set of emails that I want to work later in the night, or just maybe tomorrow. But and
What
then we also, yeah, go ahead.
No, one of the things that I've when I work with people who actually go to an office, I very often hear the comment around, "Oh yeah, no, I stay late because then I am less distracted." So people who actually use the flexibility, because in the morning there's more people around, there's like more social life around, so they come into the office later and then stay later, because that way they kind of avoid the morning distractions, which is something that you can also do online. Like if you know that there are times of the day where there's just a lot going on Slack, and that's more social, but you know that you can't stay away if you're there, then shifting your work hour so that you kind of only maybe take the second half of that social part can actually help you to not think about all of those distractions that much.
I have a Time Doctor specific question from Jean. The short answer is yes. We can provide a daily report, a real time report on pretty much all the data points that you care about. We've also developed a new feature called email notifications that could be customized per manager, per admin, and per person as well.
Hmm. One thing about the idle time report, and it's something that is currently actually being discussed in quite a lot of places. There is a big debate out there whether being at your computer the entire day actually makes for a lot of productivity. So basically, whether you should actually plan for your people to not be at the computer certain moments of the day, let's say enforcing idle time and making sure that people actually step away from the screen and maybe go for a 15-minute walk, or maybe like just change the environment completely, specifically if they are working on tasks that require certain creativity. Let's say designing something, thinking about a strategy, or even researching something, because sometimes their brain just needs a break to actually settle down all this information and like get those neurons working again. So in that case, actually looking at, is there enough idle time? So do people actually take the breaks that they should be taking? Because if somebody is busy at their computer 8 hours straight, I can assure you that person is not productive, that person is busy. And those are two very different things. Productive is doing meaningful things that are going to have an impact. Busy is just moving doing a lot of things but not really having a direction to these things. So use those idle time reports wisely and make sure that you look at them as something that can show you somebody isn't working, but it also can show you somebody isn't working because their brain is working. And both, like you need to kind of dig in what's the problem in each case.
Mhm. There is another question from Ethelyn. I will just add, how can one optimize productivity?
I would start with the. Did we put this in chat? There is this really good um, from Doist. Let me find there's a
Yes, we did. Yes,
test.
yes, we did. I'll copy and paste it again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is a really exactly. Yeah, it's it's a type form link. It's basically something that goes with you through the different types of productivity, and you can kind of score yourself. And at the end, it tells you, oh, it looks like you are this productivity type. And then you get like it, when you have the name, it's easy to then look into, okay, how can I optimize for the productivity that seems to work best for myself? And then one of those things is um, experiment. Like no one was born a productivity guru, but you actually have to experiment with what works for you and what works for your circumstances. As for example, before I had kids, my most productive time was like from 6 to 8 in the morning. It's not a thing anymore because that's when I have to get them ready for school. So I had to find a different time of the day where I can put my most productive hours in. So it's kind of, and you can tweak these things, but you need to be kind of aware and self-reflective and think about, okay, what are the things that are possible? What are the things that I want to achieve, and how can I get there?
The other thing that could help most of the people out there is I use a CRM to help me be productive. In my CRM, I can schedule my tasks. I can schedule different things that I want to do for a day. If you don't use a CRM, maybe you can use a free tool like Google Tasks. You can just plan your day, what is
Hmm.
important to you, and then you can have separate time slots of when you want to do that. So you will have something that will remind you what you need to do. So you don't have to depend on memory all the time.
Mm. Well, actually that's one of the drawbacks from to-do lists, because they technically never end. So you can put as many tasks on there as you can imagine, which is not really conducive to getting things done, because then the
Yeah.
list is longer than your day. The other option is to put the tasks directly into your calendar with a time estimate plus 50%, because we always underestimate how much time something will take. And the interesting thing there is it also shows you when your calendar is full, it looks like you can't do any more tasks this day. And then if somebody comes and say, hey, can you quickly review this report for me, you can go and look at your calendar and be like, well, actually I can't, unless I take something that I had planned for out for this day and move it somewhere else, which also makes it a lot easier to then either to push back or to ask your boss for clarification. Like, you're asking me this, but you also ask this, and actually there is not enough time in a day to do both. Which would you like me to prioritize? Which is a lot better than telling people, no, I don't, because that sounds very, I don't want to.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, we might have. Do we have any other questions? Let me have a look. We exclude breaks from idle time since if they are on a break. Again, a time doctor specific question. I would be able to help you with this directly, Gene. I have put my email in the note and I would be able to answer this for you. All right. I guess that is it. And thank you again, Valentina, for this incredible session. As you were going through your presentations and talking about real life scenarios, I could literally go back and see some of the distractors that I was a victim of. Uh, Phone calls during meetings and Amazon delivery during meetings,
Oh yeah.
the doorbell ringing, or the dog himself. And we've journeyed through a lot in this quick 30 minutes where we have looked at what distractions are, how can we manage them. Most of them are internal and there are external as well that we might not even know about. But our exploration doesn't stop here. I'm sure everyone present here would take 2 cents from here and would be able to apply within their daily work as well as within their teams. And we, over time, we would be able to witness a transformative shift in their remote work experience. Uh, I would also like to extend my gratitude to everybody who took time to join us today, and that is our fantastic audience. Can't thank you enough. And thank you for your questions and the participation as well. Your questions truly enrich each and every discussion like this one, and we hope you're walking with again some valuable insights and practical strategies that you can start implementing right from tomorrow. And we are here to support you. You can always reach out to Valentina on her LinkedIn. She's always around and she's putting a ton of content out there that you could consume and you'd find it valuable. Uh, you could also visit Time Doctor's blog. We have been doing this for about 13 years. We've been helping organizations and team leaders manage remote teams and have a productive remote team in a matter of weeks. There is a ton of content available out there. There are quick hacks in there. There are some templates that you can start using directly. Uh, that is pretty much it. Unless until we have any other questions, I thank you again for
Uh,
joining
Th-
us.
Quickly,
Yeah,
Cynthia asked, is there any material that we can receive? And there is the blog on Time Doctor with the category productivity. You can also send me a DM on LinkedIn because I have some write ups that I can also share with you. So do get in touch with Time Doctor and with me, and we can throw lots of reading material at you.
absolutely. I just put Valentina's LinkedIn on our chat. Hit her up, guys.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
All right then. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day ahead.
Bye.